sometimes it's important to feel a little exposed. So there's this old French folk tale. You can, feel free to stop me if you've heard it before. There was this boy and his mother, and they were living out in the wilderness in, complete isolation. And this boy, he knew nothing. And I mean nothing. He'd never seen battle. He didn't know who his father was. He didn't even know his own name. His mind was a blank page. So, one day he's out in the woods practicing a sharpshooting. Suddenly, 3 soldiers burst through the trees. Now, keep in mind, he's never seen anyone other than his mother before. At first he thinks that they're demons. Then he thinks that they're angels. Finally, they have to pick him up off his knees and explain to him that they're not gods, they're soldiers. And if he wants, he can run off and join them when he's old enough. So the boy runs home. And he bursts into the kitchen where his mother's making cheesecake. And he says, "Mom, I just saw 3 soldiers and I'm gonna run off and become one of them." And she passes out in a dead faint. So, he's hungry and he helps himself to some cheesecake. And eventually she comes around, decides to tell him about his father. How he was this great soldier, had all kinds of adventures. He saw the world, met all kinds of interesting people and, shot them. And eventually they started shooting back and she had to bury her husband and she went a little funny in the head. Well, and she ran off to the wilderness, determined to raise a son who would never die in battle. So she drops to her knees and pleads with him not to run off and die for some king he's never even heard of, but stay with her and die an old man. But the blood of a warrior pounds in his veins, and he's still feeling a little nauseous from the cheesecake. And he announces that he will not stay one more day in that place, but will set out for adventure as soon as his mother packs him a lunch. So she does, and she and she strips him down to a pair of boxer shorts and white socks and points him in the direction of the nearest recruiting station, hoping that, they'll just take one look at him and laugh him out of the office. So the boy sets out, has all kinds of adventures, sees the world. He eventually figures out that soldiers don't march into battle in their underpants. And soon he comes to the house of his uncle, who decides to take the boy in and teach him the ways of the world. Now he has this work cut out for him. Every time he tries to teach the kid something, he gets hit with a dozen stupid questions. How does that work? How'd that tradition get started? How old is the general's daughter? Why can't I stick that there? Why is the general shooting at us? Where am I? Why am I here? What's going on? So finally, the uncle grabs hold of the boy, picks him up by the neck, looks him in the eye and says,
"Listen, this is the most important thing I'm ever going to tell you. Stop asking questions, you understand? It makes you look like a goddamn idiot."
But how can
No!
I?
Jesus Christ! Just shut the fuck up! Next time you have something you want to say, just shut up and try to look invisible.
But how can I?
Good. Better. You're getting there. Dinner's at 6, make sure you wash up.
So the boy continues on his journey. He comes to a new land now, a land where the poor starve in the streets and the rich do nothing, a land where the people have forgotten God. He comes to this great white domed palace, and a bunch of men come out and bring him inside, introduce him to the ruler. He's an old man in a wheelchair, kind of crumpled up. He drools and mumbles, and he occasionally laughs out of context, but he doesn't say anything intelligible. Now the boy's really curious as to what's going on, but he remembers his uncle's advice and says nothing. So the boy just stands there staring at the ruler, and the ruler just sits there staring back. And this goes on for a while until one of the men announces supper. So this grand feast is laid out, and the boy lays in, and everyone's laughing and joking and having a great time when suddenly a hush falls over the hall. A young boy enters carrying a spear, and from its tip pours a steady stream of warm blood. Now our hero is very, very curious about this sight, but he recalls his uncle's advice and says nothing. The spear is carried from the hall, the silence passes, and everyone's laughing and joking like nothing happened, but not for long. Soon, a hush falls over the hall again, and this time a young maiden, clothed all in white, enters, bearing something in her hands concealed by black cloth. And the boy knows not what it is, but he knows that something inside him aches to see, and the desire for knowledge fills him, but the harsh voice of his uncle and the shape of his uncle's fist arises in the boy's mind. And he is silent. And the maiden and the mystery she carries passes from the hall, passes from his life, and all is as it was. So the boy finishes his meal, retires to one of the sumptuous guest rooms, and sleeps like a child. When he wakes up the next morning, the palace is completely deserted. He walks up and down the halls calling out the names of people he'd met the previous night, but there's no response. So finally the boy gives up, gets dressed, and sets out on his way. And as he's walking away from the palace, hears a voice ring out behind him.
You stupid fucking asshole!
And he spins around and there's no one there. The boy continues on his journey. He comes to a forest now, a forest of black and rotting trees, and from behind one of them, he hears the sound of a child sobbing. He walks around it, and on the other side, he sees a young girl, about his own age, cradling a rotting corpse. Now, our hero is so startled by the sight that he completely forgets his uncle's advice and bursts out, "What's wrong? Who did this?"
You did. Our land was once a great and glorious land, and all the other nations looked to us with reverence and respect. But one day, our ruler wandered into that forest, and he was changed by something he saw. Now, he is, as you have seen him, a drooling, blithering madman, and our world has fallen into decay. There's only one way to break the curse, 5 words to heal us all, and that is to ask, what lies beneath the veil?
No, I'll go back. I'll ask the question.
You fool! Do you have any idea what you're saying? Great soldiers have spent their whole lives seeking that place, and have never once caught a glimpse behind the ivory walls. For one man to find it twice in his own lifetime, such a thing is impossible.
And the boy said simply, "I have to try," and set out once more. And, this part's true, I swear, I'm not making this up. Before he ever completed that story, the author died. To this day, there's no man on earth who knows what became of the boy, or what lay beneath the veil.